Hi everyone, thanks for visiting my channel. This is Dream with Shan and I'm Shan. And in my last video, I mentioned that I would talk about how I budget in medical school, which is a lot different from when I used to have a full-time job. And I wanted to just share a few of the tips that I use to create my budget and some tips that I would like to share with anyone who is either in school or working with limited finances. The video is called Ball on a Budget, but by no means am I balling on a medical school budget because it is a stretch, if anything. But if you plan accordingly, you can make sure that you're living not lavishly, but comfortably within your means when you budget prior to the beginning of each school term. So, here is some information that I was able to get from my school's website on our student budget and our tuition fees. And this just gives you an idea of what you're working with. What I suggest is every student look at their school's budget and tuition and fees prior to the beginning of the school year so they can have an idea of if there were any changes from the previous year, if there were any increases, decreases, new fees that they have to think about or worry about, so that they know what their financial situation is going to be like for that upcoming year. And what we're going to focus on for this video is year two, because that's the year that I'm in. So year two of the budget, year two of the tuition and fees. And we're going to go right here to this total tuition and fee. So for second year, with all the tuition and fees that they have, it's coming out to about 50K, roughly 50K. That includes registration, student boards, immunization, health insurance, all that good stuff. Then we go over here to the actual student budget. So they're telling you that with your tuition and fees and everything else they think you may have to pay during that year period, you are allowed to take out up to $77,570 for the year. This amount was calculated based on your tuition and fees as well as information that the Educational Loan Department felt that students needed throughout the year. So the maximum amount they needed to spend on room and board or rent, things like that. And again, this is the maximum amount that you can possibly take out for that year. One thing I'll say is when I went to grad school many, many years ago, I assumed that because I had a child that my student budget would be different from everybody else's student. Yeah, big slap in the face because that is not true. No matter if you have one dependent, two dependent, three dependent, four dependent, whatever, your student budget is the same as a student that has no dependent or as a student that lives with their mom or dad. It's still the same because this is the maximum amount set by the education department on what they feel is needed for that particular program. And the student budget will vary based on what type of program you're in. So MD versus PhD versus master's, it all varies. But like I said, I suggest that you look at this information prior to starting your school year so that you can get an idea of what your financial outlook will look like for that year. So if you feel like you need to apply for additional grants and scholarships because your student budget is not going to be enough to cover all your living expenses, if you're a parent or if you're just single and you have an excessive amount of bills, then you may want to know that ahead of time instead of waiting until the beginning of the school year and like, wow, I'm short and I'm not going to have money for my rent for the last few months. So, one thing I will say is also look at your student fees because some of these fees are mandatory or non-negotiable and others are a little bit flexible. So here, most of these fees here are non-negotiable. You have to pay registration, you have to pay tuition, have to pay for your boards, parking, parking. If you take, public transportation, you may not need to pay for parking, so you can save money there. With insurance, if you're under 26 and still in your parents' health insurance plan, you won't need to pay that. Or if you're on an employer health plan or things like that. My school requires each student to have health insurance, but again, that's flexible in where you get your health insurance from. So if you're under 26, still have an employer's health plan, or if you qualify for some type of government health plan, you can save up to $3,700 to $4,200 on health insurance because my school has multiple options. So again, that's money that you can either put in your pocket or you don't have to take out that amount in loans to cover that expense. So it's very good to kind of just look at these things to see what you can play with and what you can't, because again, dental, vision, things like that you may not need. And so with this $77,000 amount, the difference between that and the $50,000 amount on your tuition and fees, that's what you actually get back for the year to use for your rent and other expenses. And that number will vary. It can either go lower, but it can't go higher, of course, based on what your needs are. You don't have to take out the max amount. And I urge people to really do a budget, because you may not need the entire, let's say the difference here is about $27,000. You may not need the entire 27,000 for the year, because you may have a roommate, so your expenses are not as much as someone who lives alone, or you just may not have an as many bills as somebody else. So keep that in mind, because this is money that you do have to pay back. Like, this isn't free money. I know we've all gone to like undergrad and graduate school, so we are aware of that. But also be aware that this money accrues in interest every year. So the money you took out in first year and the money you took out in second year and third year has grown exponentially by the time that you graduate, and you'll be responsible for paying that back. So it's really important to not take out more than what you actually need. So just remember to look over this prior to the school year, and then I'm going to just get into more specifics on how I budget.
Now that I've actually seen what my budget is for school, which again will be before the semester actually starts, I go in to create the exact budget that I plan to use for the next 6 months to a year. So I grab a scratch sheet of paper and I jot down the bills that I have, and also, I would suggest, if you can't really think of things offhand, you can either go on the internet and find like a pre-made budget worksheet for students, or go to your online banking if you use that, or your statements, and just look at the bills that you see coming out consistently. Gas, rent, credit card payments, insurance, grocery, clothes, anything like that. Things that you know for sure that you're actually going to be spending your money on, make sure you include those in the budget. And that also includes entertainment. So if you know you like to go to the movies once a month, or you like to go out to eat, make sure you're putting aside funds for that, just so that you can have most of your bases covered when you are looking at what your actual fees and expenses are. So as I mentioned in the last slide, if we're using just this budget that they have here for the second year students, our tuition came up to about $50,000, and what will be left over from the 77,000 roughly would be about 27K. Again, you don't have to take out the entire 27,000. You would take out the amount that you actually need, but you're able to figure that out once you create your budget. So if you see that your rent and utilities and things like that, and all the expenses that you have is only really coming out to about $20,000, then you don't need to take out the entire amount. And one thing that I do is when I create my budget, for instance, if everything comes out to for 1 month, $2,000, I round up to about 2,200, just to make sure that if my electric bill is higher from 1 month to the next, I have that covered. Or if I do more driving, maybe during a particular month, that I have enough gas money and things like that to carry me over, and that I'm not getting to a point where at the end of the month, or at the end of my 6 month period in between my disbursements, I have run out of money and I no longer have anything to carry me over until I receive my next disbursement from my school. So these are just some tips that I would suggest that you do. Again, look at your bank statement, look at things that you know for sure are bills that you have, things that are expenses that you can cut out, because if you're able to reduce your budget, by all means do that, because this is money again that you do have to pay back, unless this money is coming mainly from scholarships and grants. So again, look at all this information prior to this academic year starting, so that way you have a game plan and you don't have to really worry about finances once you're in the mix of things and you're trying to study and you're trying to prep for exams, maybe shadowing or other clinical opportunities.
So remember, it's very important to create your budget early. So that means if your semester starts, in August, I suggest that you look over the information your school has posted on their website either during the summer or sometime that prior semester so that you get an idea of if there have been any tuition increases, any additional things that you are expected to pay for, such as board exams or other type of things that were not normally included in your tuition and budget. And this will allow you to look at what your actual need is and how that fits into the expenses that you already have. So remember to also allocate enough funds to cover you over until you receive your next disbursement. As I mentioned in the previous example, my school does not provide me with my disbursement until a month or so after school has already started. That means that I have to come up with my August and January bill money without actually officially receiving a disbursement from my school. But when I budget appropriately, I make sure I have enough money left over from each disbursement to cover me until I receive my next refund from my loans or any scholarships that I may have received. This allows you to make sure you have everything covered in the event that there are bills that can potentially accrue late fees or hurt your credit if you don't pay them on time. Now, this may be known to many, but scholarships and grants will be your best friend no matter what type of academic program you're in, whether it's undergrad, graduate school, or professional school. Scholarships provide you with the opportunity to pay for your tuition and fees without having to accumulate additional loan debt. So, what I typically do is when I look at my budget, again, I look at my budget early. I see what my need is. And for me, a need is everything. So if my tuition is 52,000, that is what my need is. And I would prefer to supply that through scholarships and grants than to have to get loans. So each year I set a goal and how much money I hope to receive through scholarships and grants. So I either say, hey, I want to apply to up to 50K worth of scholarships or grants, or I say, if there is a list of 100 scholarships that I qualify for, I want to try to apply to at least all 100 scholarships. I don't automatically assume that I'm going to get all 100 scholarships, but I do know that there's a greater chance of me to get at least one scholarship if I apply to as many as possible. And I have been somewhat successful in my ability to um, earn scholarships. My first year of school, I was able to get about 15,000 scholarships. My second year, I was able to get 20,000 in scholarships. And this year so far, I've been able to get about 7,000 in scholarships. And one thing to remember with scholarships and grants, never assume that there is one particular period to apply. Scholarships and grants are available to you throughout the year. You just have to really keep your eyes open and be diligent about your research. And you can be applying to scholarships from January to December to increase your odds of getting money for school. So I hope this video was helpful for you in providing you with a few of the tips that I've used to help me budget while I've been in medical school and even some of the tips I used prior to entering medical school. Again, this is just the gist of what I do. It's not a complete overview of how I go through my school's budget versus my budget versus what I receive versus what I need. If you need any more details into the things that I do, you can leave a comment below, and if I can answer them there, I will, or you can email me and I can give you additional information. Again, I hope this was helpful. If you have any content that you would like me to review with you, I would love to do that. So please, again, leave a comment. If you like these type of videos or just enjoy my channel, please like and subscribe. And I hope to be able to provide you with additional content in the future. All right, take care.